You're probably wondering why I called this meeting today. All right, let's have it.
What does healthy masculinity look like to you?
Good question.
Well,
According to the internet, there is no such thing as healthy masculinity. But that's not true. So, a healthy masculine guy, he's going to be a grounded guy. He's not going to be emotionally erratic. He's going to protect himself first, and then he's going to protect his family and his friends. He's really going to be aware of the surroundings. He's going to be aware of the emotional place that his woman's in. He's going to be pretty aware of the emotional place that other men he's dealing with, I think, are in. You know, when to push them, when not to push them. So it really comes down to, you know, awareness. It comes down to taking care of yourself, making sure that all of his needs are really met first before he goes out and starts caring for everybody else. Because if he doesn't take care of himself first, he's going to actually not be able to care for others to the level that he would be capable of, because part of him isn't fulfilled at some level. So, I mean, that's what I think a pretty healthy masculine man is. You know, he's got his ducks in a row. He's on point. He's aware. He doesn't hand off responsibility to other people. Takes responsibility for himself and all of his actions. What do you guys think?
I think what you were saying about taking care of his own needs first, if he doesn't do that, it's pretty easy to just build up resentment for, like, you know, his partner or his friends who he's always caretaking, and, you know, he feels depleted, or like maybe feels like people aren't giving him the same grace that he's giving them, right? And that kind of stuff can just really eat away if he's not really establishing himself first and like putting his own needs as priority.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. Yeah.
I see a lot on both sides of where, like, anything I would consider like an unhealthy masculine is like a guy not meeting his own needs first. Starts to get exactly like that. It's just like these guys start to get bitter. I mean, I know I get bitter if I'm not taking care of myself. Like, I can get, you know, super annoyed, and every little question everybody else is asking, like, I don't feel like I have enough energy to take care of everybody.
Sure.
If I don't handle that, like, I gotta go handle that. I gotta take care of my needs. I gotta get my needs met. And I think it's it really calms me down, and like calms us down when we have our needs met. Like, we have a lot more to give, so we can brings us more into the awareness side of things. It's like it allows you to be a lot more aware. Right?
Yeah, when you don't take care of yourself first, how irritating is that? Like, it's just like this thing in the back of your mind that is just like, oh, you didn't do the thing, you didn't follow through, you didn't stay committed to yourself. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, it stacks up sometimes, and I've had times where I like a little thing slide, a little bit more go, and then at some point I'm like, well, I got to take a weekend out on my own just so I can clear everything up and figure out what I need to prioritize in order to get myself back in line.
And then how does it feel to not be able to show up 100%?
Sucks.
Yeah.
Because it's like I want to be there. I want to provide value. I want to show up. I want to take care of the people that I love. You know, like, it's a big deal. Like, it feels, and then if I feel like I'm dropping something because I can't quite meet a deadline, or I can't quite, you know, like I can't quite catch, you know, what my girlfriend needs, you know, like I can tell something's going on, but I can't quite read it because I'm too caught up in my own stuff. And it just starts to slip away, and it just gets heavier and heavier.
Yeah, like the question's about healthy masculinity, but I feel like the flip side of that is what people consider like toxic masculinity, people tearing other people down, and like frankly, from an emotional healthy like standpoint, why would you be doing that? I think the care side is like a really important aspect of that, caring for yourself first, because on the flip side of what we consider, or what people talk about as toxic masculinity is, people like go the other way and start caretaking, and it's like, oh, I'm going to put your needs ahead of mine, and it's a different kind of unhealthy masculinity, because you're caring for everyone else first, but not yourself. You're not really going to be able to show up and perform, and it usually comes with this air of like neediness and desperation, rather than from that healthy place of caring for yourself first and foremost, which is a lot nicer.
So that's interesting what you just said. The guy that's putting himself behind others, caretaking, is the classic nice guy, which the world would think is the good guy.
Yeah.
And he's really the piece of shit because he doesn't put himself first. He doesn't take care of himself first. And he builds all of this resentment, all of this hate and rage against women, against other men, against anybody in society, because he can't stand up for himself first and foremost. And so he's disrespecting himself more and more. Whereas what we were just talking about, that guy is the healthy guy. But people would think that he's the toxic guy, but he's not. He's the one that really like does what a man should be doing.
Yeah, it's kind of like as you frame it and explain it, we're talking about like prioritizing the self. It's very easy to kind of like misconstrue that into thinking like, oh, that's just a selfish person. But like that's a more giving person. Like nobody
Totally.
who's just trying to caretake, meet other people's needs, get their needs met like peripherally rather than directly, like that person's burning themselves out. The person who's like fulfilling themselves and is satisfied, like they got more capacity to give, more of like it's like a genuine givingness too. Like it's not trying to trade givingness to get something back. It's like it can be very honest and open and like direct in that way.
Yeah, all those like nice guy covert contracts that they all do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they're hiding, right? They're like hiding. They're hiding themselves, so they're not actually coming up front with like just like a proper human-to-human healthy negotiation. It's like, hey, I want to help you out. I also, like I want to get something out of this. I want us to both go some direction, like leading that.
Yep.
So they're lying. Like they're lying, right? They're lying. They're just like putting on a mask, like a happy little fake smile mask, and saying, I'll just do everything for you. And then in the back, they're just like holding on to this hope that like, somebody will see how good they've been and give them some big reward in the end, without being clear about what exactly it is they even want.
Yeah, like I've got some sympathy for nice guys, because there are plenty of people out there who come from from a well-meaning, well-intentioned place with this, but it's so frustrating to watch it and see it in action, because it's sometimes it can be from a malicious place, but most often I see it from a place of weakness, of trying to compensate for a sense of lack. It's like, if I do this thing for other people, they're going to like me for it. I'm going to feel better about myself. And it doesn't come from a place of like completeness, or like you said, a sense of being complete and full, being able to genuinely share. It's more like it's much more a sense of like, I'm giving so I can get, which we all know that just doesn't feel great.
Yeah. How do you guys handle those nice guys? Like when you run into them,
Like
does it irritate you? Because it irritates the shit out of me.
when I run into one, it's usually when I look in the mirror in the morning and I'm like, fuck, you're still here. But like for myself, it's and then what I recognize in people that I resonate with a lot is like the voices of like guilt or shame that's trying to say like, I should be doing this for somebody else. I should be showing up better in business. I should be da 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 da. And like that voice is kind of playing versus actually a more introspective voice that's saying, what do I need in this moment right now that's going to energize me, get me to a place that feels more fulfilled so that I can do these things. Because like if I'm trying to meet all of these external like obligations, responsibilities, whatever that is, and I'm not able to do that in a way that's like comprehensive or feels energizing to me, I'm probably lacking some sort of need that I haven't met in myself. It's just actually flipping that script and flipping off the mental, like I should, the little the guilt voice is like chattering in the back of like parents and teachers and whatever, and just reframing and asking a more introspective question. For
Yeah,
me.
definitely. What about, this is really hard for nice guys. Very easy for guys that are not nice guys. And using the word no. And just literally shutting something off because it's not feeling good to you. How do you guys work with that?
Start with being able to detect the no in the first place, because maybe they're so like dissociated or out of that like gut instinct of what feels good to them, what doesn't feel good to them, that they're not used to really saying no from that place. They might be used to a strategic no of like, oh, that's not the best option to like get what I want in the future by orchestrating all these things. But they're just out of touch with that felt sense of like, this is not right for me. Just getting them in touch with that first is number one.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Very important to be in touch with the no that you're saying and why you need to say it. And having the courage and the strength to say it when you need to say it.
I know for a lot of guys it can be super uncomfortable. It can be really, really uncomfortable, especially if you got into those like people-pleasing habits and you're running around and like it's the normal thing, it's the safe thing to just like say yes to everything, help everybody else out, and go home and still feel like alone and lonely and like you're not getting what you want, so you start fuming, you go try to figure it out, you go read terrible threads on the internet and get yourself all worked up. And the only thing you really had to do was just notice that like you know, like you said it before, like respecting yourself. Like I see a lot of these guys get stuck like not feeling respected or not sure that they can show up and be respected, but you know, they're not respecting themselves first. They're not saying no to something they don't actually want to do, that hasn't been like maybe you give a gift, like if you're to like a new friend, you give something and then you just kind of wait and see if they're gonna connect and reciprocate, right? Like that's a normal healthy thing, but they just keep going and keep going and keep going until they're just like emptied out and pissed off and so invested, like over-invested in one person or over-invested in, you know, some girl that never cared, you know. And it's like if you're more in your healthy masculinity, you're checking that kind of stuff. It's like I'll invest in a girl, like I'll buy a girl a drink, you know, I'll hang out, pay for a date, and you know, if she doesn't return any investment in me, then it's just like okay, cool, whatever. And I just don't keep investing in her. She's not.
It's like a trade gone bad.
Yeah.
You just cut your losses and move on to the next one.
Yep.
I really like that idea of investment, and it's like it occurs to me that it's not just investment in one person; it could be investment in just other people or investment in yourself. And if you're always saying, "Oh yeah, I'll do this for you, I'll do this for you, I'll do this for you," and really inside you're screaming just to go like, "Hey, I need to go lay down for a bit and maybe take some time for myself." It's you're investing in everyone else, but not yourself, and at some point you're not going to have anything left to give. And just being able to say no is.
And then there's people out there that will just like they look for that. They know, you know, they know that you're just going to give everything without asking or putting it.
Oh yeah.
And then you know they know to say no as soon as you get weird.
A user and a people pleaser is a great combination.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You said something really interesting about people saying no or guys saying no and feeling like they're going to lose respect because they said no. And so many guys have this fear oh, well, what if I tell her no, or what if I tell, my business partner no, or whatever. And they're so afraid that no is going to discredit them in such a major way, when actually the opposite is so much more true. It's like, oh, okay, I can legitimately feel like this need for you to stop, say no, cut this person off, whatever. And in all of my experiences, that no has actually gained me so much more respect.
It's like that feeling of I can't say no. It's so like visceral. I think for a lot of people, it's just like we make up these logical reasons for it, but just the idea of like stopping and saying no and just like pushing something away for some people is just too much.
Yep.
And even if it's a no, it's a soft no with like an excuse or like a justification or like maybe I'll come along, a little bit later, but I'm kind of busy now, and you know, it's so much harder and more draining than just saying no. I think the first time it's like a shock to the system, but like after a while, like very very quickly, it starts to feel like, oh yeah, this is almost enjoyable. It's that sense of power, that ability to protect yourself and set boundaries that just no one likes someone who's sitting there going, oh yeah, maybe I'll show up, maybe I'll do it. Yeah, I'm definitely. You can't trust that person. No
No,
one wants to be around that guy.
not at all. I'd rather hear no. And, if we're talking about an event or something, I'd rather hear somebody say no. Okay, great. And then, you know what? Maybe their schedule freed up. Maybe they had a change of heart, and they're just like, actually, I want to go to this. And then they show up and they're like, hey, what's up? I know I told you no, but X, Y, and Z happened. I'm here now. I'd much rather hear that than, oh yeah, sure, we'll see you there. And like the undertone, it's like, you're not fucking showing up.
Yeah, and even like
So annoying.
Yeah, so
So fucking annoying.
Can't trust that. Yeah. Say it to my face.
and even from like a pragmatic standpoint too, just like getting the most out of people. Like if I'm working with if I'm working with Dom, for example, and I'm like, hey, can you do this? And Dom's gut feeling is like, no, I can't because I have these other commitments and I'm not really good at that and that's not where my skill set's best suited. And I'm like, can you do this thing? And if Dom's being a people pleaser and he's like, yeah, sure, I can do it, I can do that, sounds great. Like I'm not gonna get 100% of his capacity because that's just not in his skill set. Versus if he just says no, but I can do this instead, or no, I recommend you give that task to somebody else. Like my life ends up way better. Dom gave me an awesome plan of action to follow, even if it wasn't my first plan of action. Like everything works out better in the long run. I'd rather have a bunch of people around me like this who could just say no, 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 and then I go, okay, well, maybe someone else can do it, and then it's just more pragmatic and simple.
Yep.
and changing the mindset around it too, because there can be this mindset about like being valuable, like you have to be doing a lot for other people to be valuable, which is true, but not at any cost, right? It's like being valuable, like helping, right? That's our currency with each other. Like we're helping each other reach our goals, right? We're helping each other live healthier, happier lives. All of that, like that's insanely valuable. That's one of the ways we bond with each other, but like not at any cost.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, it's definitely and it comes back to the kind of healthy masculinity, unhealthy masculinity. Are you taking care of yourself first, or are you trying to take care of everyone else first? It's like if you gave $1 to every single guy on the street who came to you and said, "Oh, I just need $1," at some point you're going to end up broke and pretty pissed off. But at the same time, if you had some choice over that, it's like, well, I don't really want to give $1 to every single person I meet, but if this guy asks really nicely, sure, why not? Or if a buddy of mine comes up and says, hey, look, I need this money, like, please. You're going to feel a lot better than just like, here, dollar, and then at some point, you don't have any more to give. And that guy who's coming up to you, who really needs that help, you can't help him.
Speaking about like handing beggars money, there's this dude who started giving beggars like little trinkets and pieces of like food items two homeless guys. And he would hand them all this stuff, and he would say, give me 20-30% by the end of the day, and he would go back and he would actually give them a small business to run. So instead of just sitting there with a sign begging for cash, they would have like a box of, like, I guess during COVID, they would have like a box of masks and candies and stuff like that. So they've got something like of value to actually offer people. And I thought that was pretty cool as a way of like changing, like giving somebody who would otherwise just be a beggar and just a drain on society, right? Like something useful to do, since they're going to be standing, like they're going to stand. Not that they want to stand there, but like they're going to stand there anyway.
Yeah.
Giving them something useful to bring back, and then actually making it easier to, for anybody who would want to be able to make an exchange with them. Right? To not have to just be kind of like guilted into like, I hope your day is not as bad as it will be otherwise. Kind of playing that nice guy character.
That's cool. Little mini business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently it grew pretty well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I got a follow-up question that you've already answered to some degree, which is, how do clear boundaries enhance masculine presence?
How do clear boundaries enhance masculine presence? Cool.
Is that kind of like from an energetic perspective, or?
Yeah, how does that actually affect how you show up as a man to those around you?
I would say you generally feel more just satisfied and solid in yourself. Like if I'm looking at a person who's got like a very clear sense of like their boundaries, the person actually visually appears to me like more solid and defined. Like they're energetically taking up more space because their expression of when they want to say yes to something or no to something is congruent with what they're feeling. And then a guy who's like incongruent in his words and intentions with what he actually feels in the moment, their energy is going to collapse a little bit, be less attractive, and like we're all going to kind of sense that. Like if I sense some incongruency over here, I might not pay as much attention to Nick. If I
Yeah, touchy.
like whatever that is, just those little micro energetic movements that move through the conversation.
Yeah, like I always like to touch on the energetic aspect, but like in very real terms, like the effect on people around you is like, do I trust this person? Do I feel safe around them? There's something that's been really apparent, hanging out with you guys, that like having that clear ability to say like, no, like this is my sense of identity, this is what my values are, this is how far I will go and how far I will not go. It makes me feel a lot more safe with people like that. It means I can trust who they are. I don't have to worry about them being, saying one thing and then doing another. And like energetically speaking, yeah, people feel safer in your presence, emotionally speaking, and also like physically speaking as well. Like there's a sense of safety that comes off people who are more grounded. I think we've all seen it. It's just, you feel good around them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Can you repeat that question one more time?
Yeah, it was, how do clear boundaries enhance masculine presence?
Okay. So, the way I teach boundaries, it starts with you yourself first and foremost. If you can't set your own boundaries for yourself and respect them, how are you going to be respected and seen as a solid, healthy guy outside of yourself? So, the guy that takes care of his health, who has his finances on point, who cares about the way he looks, who lives in the best place he can afford, who drives the nicest car he can afford, who has good, high quality friends around him. These are all forms of boundaries he's put for himself. Like he's not, I'm not going to stoop below this level. I'm going to hold myself to a higher level, and in within a level that he can sustain, not some crazy level where he's buying a car he can't afford or living in a place he can't afford, whatever. He's within his lane, and he respects himself for that place and respects everything he does for himself. And he really holds himself accountable. And people sense that in a guy. You know, anytime a guy that's got all that dialed, there's a presence to him, there's an energetic signature to him. And that makes him immediately, as long as he's grounded, immediately much more trustworthy, safe, and that's how, in a sense, like in the dating world, that's how naturals operate. You know, that's how really masculine, solid guys operate. Like you can feel that off of them. There's a sense of safety and trust in themselves, first and foremost. And when other people come into the picture, they can open themselves up, create boundaries for those people around them, including the wife, the girlfriend, extended family, their own family, their friends. And when that is all put into place, the respect for him goes way up.
I have something to say about that actually, because I've transitioned from one to the other actually, exploring some, you know, like meditations and stuff like that. But I had, like through my 20s, been very, very clearly boundary. Like it was so clear to me that like my business was a priority over my girlfriend, was a priority over, you know, like any random person. And I remember always having like just this really obvious sense that like people looked at me, they looked up to me, they wanted my attention. You know, and then my girlfriend was always begging for more of my attention too. She's like, hey, can we hang out more? Like, can we go out on more trips and stuff like that? And I remember always being very clear, like, if I can, I will. But if I have to work, I have to work. Like, I have to, like, I've got goals here, right? I'm trying to make something happen. And I was always stepping into the next best place that I could. And there's a really powerful feeling there, right? There's a very powerful feeling there, right? It's super stable. It makes it very clear and easy to see what's next. As well as it can, and I can see why I can see why boundaries would get lax, because there is this thing like when some guy wants my attention, he wants my time, he wants to, like, he's like, hey, you know, like, you're so cool, let's hang out, and I'm like, I'm not gonna hang out with this guy. Like, I'm not gonna answer his call, I'm not gonna text him back. And like I feel like I'm gonna break his heart if I just say, you know, like, I'm not gonna do it, but I do it anyway, because like, the kindest thing I can do is just say, look, I work a lot, like I'm not gonna answer any texts. I don't really hang out with you guys that I meet, whatever I have to say, I guess, in that moment. Always still had me feel way more clear. So it's like it feels uncomfortable in the moment because I'm like letting this guy down in a way, like I can see his hopes. But I always felt better the next day because I didn't have this thing weighing in my mind.
Yeah, it's reference points that you're like, oh, okay, that's a reference point, not going past there.
Yeah. And then I'd spent some time, because I had gone into, you know, like some more therapeutic, meditative, explorative kind of things. And I actually spent some time like intentionally letting more people into my life. And that was messy. That turned into an absolute mess for me. I stopped feeling the same kind of self-respect that I'd always had. I got very confused for a while because I was like, who do I trust, who's not? Because I'm trying to say yes to people I would have otherwise just been like flat out no to, being entertaining. And I lost the respect of a lot of people around me, actually. So, like, I wouldn't think so because they knew me through everything before, but going down that rabbit hole really hurt me. Like, it really hurt me. Like, I actually lost a lot of social resource. I lost a lot of my own confidence in my ability to take, you know, to like handle some of that stuff, even though I've got like decades of, like more than a decade of some really solid experience in those fields. And so it can be detrimental, I think, to like the psyche. It can be detrimental to like social bonds to start letting those boundaries go if you have them. And the opposite is also true, is as I've come out of that and I'm starting to regain that like regain my footing, and I looked deeper to find out what else was there. But then coming back out of it, I'm just like finding those solid boundaries, that like goal that I'm going for. So I will, coming back to feeling that and saying no again, and going back to like, I don't have time for certain. I have to prioritize. Like there's some things I just don't have time for, and because I can't be infinitely loving. Like I'm not an infinite person, right? It's like fucking ideal. It sounds so beautiful in some books. It's like it's infinite amount of love.
Yeah.
But it doesn't exist. And I'm one man. I have so much energy. I have so much time in the day, and so I like it or not, I have to put boundaries around. I have to structure. I have to prioritize. And it's feeling so much better to come back to that, right? To come back to scheduling time out, setting my intentions, setting my priorities to exactly what I need to be doing and who I need to be taking care of, starting here.
Yeah. And if you don't set your boundaries and control your life, somebody else is going to.
Absolutely.
That's the whole point of the boundary, is to not let people have control of you. Because as you found out.
Yeah, it's really
That was-
apparent, like listening to the two of you, that that sense of internal boundary you're talking about, like treating yourself right just for the sake of it, and for you as well, like saying yes and no to the things that you really want to say yes to, the things you really want to say no to. So that really, we have our own set of internal values. Your boundaries are your ways of establishing, like, what am I going to do that might not really agree with these values. And at first, if you go over a little bit, it won't feel like much, but then essentially you're just saying my values don't matter, and that's going to really diminish your masculine presence. And conversely, if you're sitting there going like, well, I know exactly where my boundaries are, and it's interesting to hear you say that, it still kind of hurts sometimes enforcing those boundaries. Like, it's still that willingness to step into that discomfort and say, this is what matters to me, and I feel for you, but I'm not going to compromise who I am to satisfy you. It's going to make you like much more masculine, much more trusting, much more trustable, much more present.
I think what you touched on there at the end is huge, because you can also go so far as to being like adherent to your own boundaries, but not also sensitive to like other people's reactions to them. So like part of that process, and like in myself, like as a young kid, I was like all about drums, and it was very simple, like just get better at drums every day. And it was kind of disorienting coming out into like the adult world, basically. And then realizing that now I need to balance my own boundaries with other people's reactions and being able to receive emotionally their reactions. And it's like, can you stick to your own sense of boundaries and values while still being like emotionally present with people? And it's not saying like you're going to let them take you off course, but like if you have to say no to somebody, if you have to say no to a girlfriend, like I know this is not going to work out in the long term, you have to go through that grief process. Versus just like saying, nope, this is it. I'm going to shut myself off and continue on. Like that can be super disorienting too.
Definitely. And disrespect will build in that scenario as well, because there isn't an exchange. Yeah, it's tough facing that emotional feedback when you are putting up boundaries, because most likely you're putting up boundaries against another person. And it's like, here's your wall and you're staying outside of it. And then you have to look at them and the pain they're in as they're outside of that, and know that you caused it. Sort of. It's ultimately their own shit to deal with. Yeah. But you started it, and that's a difficult thing, and that's what folds so many people into breaking their own boundaries and not respecting themselves. It's a slippery slope.
That's that's a huge thing. It's like being a solid dude is uncomfortable as fuck. Like, you know, like so many uncomfortable moments, like doing the hard thing, like that little voice saying, like, dude, you gotta say no to this, and then the feeling of like, well, I don't know, like there's a battle there going on all the time of like, do I just want to feel comfortable right now? And I think sometimes it can be easy, especially for guys who haven't really just like gone through the gauntlet, to just do the comfortable thing and say yes, and then like be slightly uncomfortable later and be like, I don't know, I can't really show up, right? And rather than just say the thing that's like, it's gonna feel uncomfortable right now, to say, no, I'm not gonna be able to do it. And then just see that, feel that interaction, and then, but then feel fine later, right? Like feel more composed, feel more solid.
Totally.
Yeah.
And more confident in yourself in reaffirming those boundaries, because the more and more we reaffirm them, the more confident we become in our own decisions ourselves. And again, that radiates out to other people and is very attractive and very trustworthy.
Yeah, I really like it as, you know, if you look at people who, if we're talking about masculine presence, you think about people who don't set boundaries and the pushovers, you know, the nice guys, people who like really don't have that masculinity. And then, you know, what you were touching on, which is guys who are just ignoring, blocking people out, just like not letting anything in. And they're assholes, but they're masculine assholes. And a step above that is what we're talking about, that healthy masculinity, that ability to go, like, it breaks my heart to do this, or to say no, and, you know, to do what needs to be done, but like that is like more masculine still, and it's like a much healthier sense of masculinity than just, no, fuck you, I'm not doing this, which is like immature. It's like a tantrum. It's,
Yeah, totally.
yeah.
Totally.
But it does feel really, really good to go through the pain and know you can handle it,
Yeah.
right? And
That-
it's like you can see the guys where you're like, that guy, he can't handle it. Like,
Yeah.
he's gonna break down. He's gonna cry. He's gonna whine. He's gonna make up all kinds of excuses. He's gonna get manipulative to try to like hold some kind of comfort and social standing for himself, and like that just brings so much chaos into a relationship or a business partnership. You know, and like when you meet a dude, like when you meet dudes that are just like, okay, this guy's put himself through the ringer, like
Yeah.
he's been put through the ringer, he knows. It's like, okay, we can push on each other, we can handle our shit, we can do some hard stuff to better ourselves and to better the people around us.
100%.
So,
We're going to go to what some people might consider the other side of the coin, which is can vulnerability make a man stronger?
I think that touches similarly to what we're talking about, is like, it's like if you go so far into the just like defended boundary and it's just like a solid wall, it's hard to, like I've been there in like, you know, my teen years, like I was pretty closed off in a lot of ways, and it's like I could just do whatever the heck I wanted and felt like no retribution, no consequence. And I had to come through that and had to come through a reckoning at some point, because at some point I had to start opening that up in order to connect more deeply with people. And I had to start seeing that, I had to start feeling that in order to have the kind of like long-term bonds and trust that I have now. It's like, there has to be some amount of vulnerability. Like if it's like I have to have those boundaries, but I do have to also see what's going on for you on the other side, and also let you feel a little bit of what's going on for me. Just so that we can trust each other.
Definitely. I mean, the short answer to that question is 100%. And I say 100% because if someone, especially a guy, like this is how I like gauge my guy friends and how much I can trust them. If they're vulnerable and share something with me, I'm like, there's the real you. So when I look at vulnerability in men, it's men showing the real selves, not the facade, not the mask they put on to be tough. It's like, oh, okay, you took that off, you exposed like who you really are to me. That makes me trust you. That makes you more masculine. And if you ask a woman, that's exactly what they want. They want that vulnerability because they want to know, especially if long-term girlfriend, wife, they really want to know who is the man behind that facade. And it's really, really important. And, you know, some of the dudes that I get to hang out with, I'm blessed to hang out with, they are extremely vulnerable. In a weird sort of way, they're not, but because I do what I do, like I can see it in them and I really appreciate it. And their vulnerability comes through in the way they care for my success when I'm working with them. And so that's really interesting to me. But it is super important to be a well-rounded dude.
Well, it shows up as a bigger, brighter confidence because, like, you know, if you go from being a guy who doesn't set any boundaries at all and just like, you know, meek, just totally meek, to a dude who can just put on a mask and grunt through hard stuff, like, good on you for sure, but like that still pales in comparison to a guy who can be open and raw, actually touching the dirt, right, and still push through it, still push through that full brunt of feeling absolutely everything and still be showing up right here in this moment with whatever you're doing.
Yeah, you had a beautiful example of that today when we were working on jujitsu or the intention exercise. Dude, so beautiful. There was a lot of pain there, and you just like, you're like, I'm fucking standing here, I'm in it, I'm doing it, you're showing up. And then Silas was just like, yeah, I got you, I'm here with you. It was just so awesome.
Yeah.
I really love that.
And it feels awesome. It feels particularly empowering because I could just stand there and do the exercise from ego, you know, and just be like, yeah, rigid body, and I'm doing the thing, and I'm feeling this, but like to just drop in and feel all those feelings, and then just like, holy crap, there's a lot of pain here, there's a lot of emotion here and memories here that are just rolling up, and I know he can see it, I know you can see it, and I'm like, all right, here we are, but like just still staying solid even with that, you know, like that little bit of shakiness and vibration, like finding the solid bits and just staying in it anyway.
Yeah, it was so awesome, dude.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
Felt powerful, and it is also talking about being around solid men. It's like it's a blessing to be able to be around men that can like trust to like show up that way and to sharpen that edge with.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah, like it occurs to me that when we're talking about vulnerability, like I know the first time I heard that, I had a couple of different mixed reactions to it. The one hand is people thinking that it's about letting everything out and being, you know, now I'm really sad, so I'm crying everywhere, I'm weeping, or like, and now, like, whatever it may be. Like, or, you know, vulnerability as a weakness, which is what the other side of it is, which people think, you know, you can't show those emotions, and it's something I've seen more and more, like especially working with you, is that like it doesn't have to be like one extreme or the other. It can just be, okay, this guy is mostly contained, but you can see it just under the surface. You know, it's open there for those, like you said, for the guys who can see it or the girls who can see it. Because we don't need to be like just laying it on thick every day, going like, everybody, I'm sad, look at me cry, and it becomes like it's awful. Like,
Dumping all of your emotions, you know, yeah, no.
like no one wants that, right?
No.
And
That's the feminine's job.
yeah, and you know, even you know, you say that's the feminine's job, right? But if a woman's doing that still, it's still kind of annoying if it's that kind of like, look how sad I am.
Yeah, just over the top.
Yeah, there needs to be some like element of
sincerity,
stability, and sincerity, exactly. And you know, you mentioned about like having guys around you who can hold you in that, and like I've been through some rough times, and like talking to you guys recently and just like staying in that moment, like feeling some like, you know, stuff I've gone through. It hasn't always been just like, okay, now I'm breaking down and crying and sobbing. Like, you know, sometimes if that's really what's there, sure, but like a lot of the time it's just been a little knot at the back of your throat, and you know, a little trickle like in
I
the
think
eye.
there's a good question there that this is like something that I hear a lot of guys talk about is like, you know, how can they be vulnerable with women, right? Because there's this hypocritical double standard expectation, it seems like, you know, like if I'm sturdy and strong, women are always asking me to feel more, and then if I'm feeling more, they're like, ooh, gross, get out of here. But it's not. I don't generally feel it as that much of a dichotomy. It's like a misunderstanding of vulnerability.
Totally. 100%. I agree with you. And guys get that wrong so much because they do exactly what you're saying. They just like dump it all out. But us as guys, that's the way we it's like a dam, right? The water just keeps building up behind that bitch until it can't hold it anymore. And then wham, it all comes out. And that's the way we operate. Why? Because we have to contain so much of ourselves in the world for us to function. Like we forget to do what women do naturally, and that's like express that shit. You know, you have a bad day, somebody fucked with you too much, whatever. It's like, hey guys, like I appreciate the teasing, but I'm sick of the bullshit right now. Like I'm at this place, and like being able to say that is really good. Or, you know, if you're home with your woman and you had a bad day and you're feeling like shit because you didn't close a sale or some deal fell through or whatever happened, you know, maybe it's a family issue, right? Just something as simple as, babe, like this thing happened in the family today. I'm worried. And I'm saying this because I've recently gone through this. And just being able to say, hey, like this is really bothering me. That's all she needs. And guys think because a woman is so expressive in her emotions, that's the way he should be. No. Just a simple little thread, and she will pull all of that out of you as much as she wants and needs to feel connected to you, to support you and nurture you, which is what her job is. So, yeah, it's a very interesting thing, the way it all works out. But, you know, if you are vulnerable, just don't go overboard. Like so many dudes do that.
Because it's so different to like just wallow and go home to a girlfriend or a girlfriend and just like I don't know, I'm so confused, and then she's over there like, where the fuck is my guy, like where's the
Yeah.
dude at?
Yeah.
Right, versus, you know, being totally walled off and just fuming, and she's worried, she's like, what's going on with him, right? What's going on? Did I do something? She's gonna be worried about that. And if you can just come home. And I end up doing exactly this, right, all the time. It's like I just come back and I'm like, hey babe, had a hard day. You can probably already tell, right? Like I'm kind of fuming, or I'm like sad about, you know, something didn't work out. And I'm just kind of stuck on it right now. So I'm gonna be just chilling, trying to work that out, you know. And then if she wants to, she'll come to it. Well, what happened? And we'll go more.
Yep.
Okay. And if she doesn't, then she doesn't. And I go through my own process.
Yeah.
And that's totally okay.
But you come home and say something like that, she's going to be all over it. That is just so a woman's nature to be like, oh, something's going on here. Let me find out. Yeah, especially if she truly cares for you and your well-being. Like she's going to be on it. Definitely.
Yeah, and it's like the way we're talking about this vulnerability, it's like we can also lead ourselves through it, and take the responsibility for having all of these emotions or like reactions to whatever happened in the day. Like if we're just doing the like overly emotional, like just letting it all out, like the dam breaks type of thing, it's almost implicitly putting the responsibility on everybody else in the room. It's putting the responsibility on your girl. It's putting the responsibility on you guys, like, versus actually being able to hold myself in it and say, like, okay, this is what I need from you right now to, like, create more safety, more space for me to feel this. This is, like, sometimes it's as simple as, like, hey, I can't have this conversation right now. Let's put it off until tomorrow.
Yeah, totally.
But like creating those boundaries around what you're feeling so you can still lead yourself through it. And that might mean like not just leading it all myself and like stonewalling or like putting on a mask, like I can handle this because I'm a tough guy, but like saying, hey, I really need this from you right now, this favor. I need you to, like, I don't know, check on me in an hour, whatever that is.
Yeah. And this is the tricky part about that kind of stuff, right? It's like you really have to know yourself to be able to make requests of your woman. Like, not every guy is that aware to be able to do that and even know what he needs in the moment. You know, because we lose our shit sometimes, and it is what it is. Like, that dam breaks, and that's a real thing. But if the dam breaks, how quickly can you get that flow back under control where you're like, okay, damage report, I need this, this, and this. And that's, and I don't want guys to listen to this and think like, oh, I shouldn't have a breakdown. Not true. Breakdown. It's an amazing experience. But get it under control, and then the resources around you tell them what you need to heal yourself and then get to a better place.
Yeah, like that sense of nuance and emotional intelligence is, you know, I can see it where a lot of people coming in and hearing emotional intelligence, like emotional sensitivity, like they're coming in from a perspective of, okay, this is all about being in your feelings and like being like lost to the feelings, because, you know, that's what you see in comparison to, you know, guys who are just locked off and just, I'm fine, I'm fine. And they go the other way, and then, you know, we've all had those kind of experiences where, you know, the dam breaks and everything comes flooding out. And I guess if you're going into that kind of emotional work and you see this as the opposite of, you know, being locked off, it becomes this thing where it's like, it feels really good to let it all come out. And especially if you're in an environment where everyone's saying, yes, 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 this is it, this is the path to healing. And you go, oh yeah, okay, so it's always got to be like this. Every time I'm sad, it's going to be the floodgates open.
That's
Every
a really
time
good
I'm
point.
angry, I have to shout. And,
Yeah.
but eventually it just becomes, yeah, if you can actually handle your shit, it's just like, yeah, like I'm pretty pissed off right now. Like, leave me the fuck alone for a few minutes. I'm kind of sad right now.
Yeah.
Just like,
Yeah, like you just said, and it might be like a little tear run down or something like that.
yeah,
And you're over it.
yeah.
And I want to say more about like the gates breaking, and it's like if they do, like if there is that day where it's just like just pops open and you start acting, you know, a little dumb, a little irrational, and like, you know, with your guys or with a girlfriend or something like that, it's like you can absolutely recover that. Like it's not the end of the world. Like you don't have to be perfect.
Yep.
Right? Like you don't have to be perfect all the time. Like you have the thing and it's like, oh shit. So as soon as you catch it, right? As soon as you catch it, enough has come out and you're like, oh shit, all right. I know what I should be doing right here. Get it back into control, like you said. And then, you know, make your amends, you know, get it back into like, hey, sorry dude, that was a little off. Here's what I need right now. Same thing with the girl. It's just like the people are super, super forgiving. Like it's totally fine to just like make a mess every once in a while. Obviously, if it's happening all the time, like that's not a cool thing. But like every once in a while, you make that slip up, and you know you can ask for forgiveness, and people are super forgiving. It's like totally understandable.
Yep.
It's like 90% of the time, like when I own that shit, when I'm, you know, guys and girls, you just say, look, hey, I'm probably going to be like a little grumpy. I'm in a super bad mood here. Like, let's just like get on with this as best we can. And then like a lot of the time, that's enough. You know, just to clean it out, open that space. And if you're handling it, again, most people are just going to sit there and say, yeah, cool, I understand. And it doesn't have to be a tantrum. It doesn't have to be this big event.
Us grumpy?
No.
Never.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. Exactly.
We're going to go into one that we get from our audience. Why don't women respect me when I do everything right?
Well, buddy, what can I say to that? Besides, yeah. Well, this wasn't going to be a serious answer, but it's just, yeah. If you think you're doing everything right, buddy, I got news for you. because you know, what you think you're doing right is probably not right.
Yeah.
You're doing everything for her, and if you're doing everything for her, like God's honest truth, you're doing it because you don't feel enough. And yeah, like it's a shitty spot to be in. Like we've all been there, I'm sure, but yeah,
Yeah, I always find it as just like a total, like a lack of acceptance of reality. It's like you've got to look at what's in front of your eyes. Like you've got to take in the data and information that's coming to you clear as day over and over again. Like whoever told you that you were supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and that that was the right way to be, whether it was a book or it was your mom or whoever, and you're just trying to do that and beat your head against a wall day after day after day, trying to do the right thing and just totally ignoring the way reality actually works, right? Just it's to me that one's just like you got to get into your senses, like you got to open your eyes, you got to like track some stuff, like what happens when I do X, and then actually take that information in as that's how the world probably works.
Yep. So I would say for that guy, like he's living in a delusion. He's living in a delusion of what he thinks is right. In his world, that's right. But he's not being respected because it's clearly not right for the countless women that he's probably dated. So there's a disconnect there at some level where he's, you know, he may have a lot of nice gestures, but again, like typical nice guy behavior, he's wanting something on the back end for his nice behaviors instead of, well, here's the other thing. He's catering to her in a very manipulative way. I'm going to do all of the nice things because this is what I've been told to do. And following a script and a way of being that is not who he really is. And this is the biggest problem with dating coaches and dating in general with guys. They do not know who they are. They do not know what they stand for. They don't know what they're going to tolerate and not tolerate. And then they go out, go on these dates, and it all goes to hell because they just have no idea who they are. A guy who knows who he is can tolerate when a woman's testing him, when she's challenging him, when things don't go right on the date, and when he might have messed something up because he wasn't paying attention. He can handle all of that no problem and still get the girl to fall in love with him.
Well, and it's actually kind of fun, like when you know who you are.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, this is fun, this is interesting, let's go.
Yeah. And it's like you can actually, instead of the guy trying to play her game, he gets to invite her into his world, which women love. They want to know what their man is about. They want to know all the nuances about him. And so when a guy really knows who he is, he can now invite her in to play instead of the other way where he's chasing her reality. And that's why it always fails.
I have so many girlfriends that are just like, when am I gonna find a dude who just like takes me on a fucking ride, right? Like takes me into his world. He's the one hosting the parties. He's the one that got the house. Like he's the one that like knows what he wants to do. He knows what he likes to eat. He knows where he wants to travel. He's got a vision. He's got an action.
Yep.
Because like they're bringing it. They're living their lives, and then most dudes are just trying to come up and be like, "Can I have a little bit? Like,
Yeah.
Can I have a little bit of your time?" And it's just like, there's some guys that they'll hang out with for a little while, but yeah, they drop most of those guys pretty quickly, even if they give them any attention at all.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about what you said, when a guy has a vision and he knows where he's going, he knows what he's doing, that's another layer of safety for her. She's like, oh, I can trust in this. It makes me feel comfortable to know where I'm going. Because we know like women are just, the way they calculate things in their mind is just, it's uncomprehendable to us as men because we're very linear in our thinking. And so if she can let go of some of that chaotic thinking and get on board with somebody that has some trajectory, it feels safer in the mind to do so.
Yeah, I've met some girls that are like very, very chaotic, and as soon as they like latch onto a solid dude that has like a solid plan, it's like her, like his words become her words. Like she's basically speaking his stuff all
Yep.
the time, and like she kind of becomes him. in a way.
Yeah, you
Extension.
got to be careful with that sometimes. Got to be careful with that sometimes. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen that, and sometimes, you know, the ladies lose their own identity. And what's really healthy is, you know, she has her own identity, he has his own identity. She chooses to hop on, you know, his ride, go with him, and together they work out the differences if there are any.
Yeah, I was talking about the really chaotic girls.
Yeah,
Like
the train wreck girls.
they're on,
Yeah.
on some other world level, you know.
Yeah, you just hop on and ride that train for it and get off at the next station because you do not want to be on that train when it derails.
Nope.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I also wanted, there's like another part of that question. I also kind of wanted to define what respect is in this situation. Because the guy's like, oh, women don't respect me.
Oh, that's a good point. Interesting.
But is respect like women listen to you when you talk? Is it they do what you say? Is it you have a loyal girlfriend? Like, what is that? Like, if a guy can't really define that in his, like, his situation, whether it's work or his relationship or his situationship, whatever's going on, like, if he can't just define that for himself and have the self-respect to just hold that boundary, she doesn't have any idea of what it's like to respect him. Like, a guy like that who has that question probably just is leaving it fuzzy.
Yep.
And leaving the women around him,
Yep.
if there are any, leaving those girls kind of like confused and like, how do I treat this guy?
Really good point. Yeah, I like that. It's very, very true. He has not set up a boundary or a way for her to actually know how he should be treated. And he most likely doesn't even know himself. So that's a good point, man.
Yeah, like I really like that, and I think to take it like super energetic, like on one level, you know, sure you're doing the right things, but almost certainly, like you're doing them, you're not being the right thing, and like it occurs to me the reason why, you know, women aren't respecting him is because like he doesn't respect himself, which is why
Yeah.
he's doing all of
He's
these
doing,
things.
not being, yeah.
You know, buying the flowers, he's doing a little gesture, when in reality, like he's, you know, he feels something else. He's coming from that place of, like, why don't you respect me? And the more you do that, the more you try and cover up that sense of, hey, like I don't feel respected. I don't feel that sense of respect for myself. Maybe I'll try a bit harder so I can get someone else's respect. All that does is make you feel less respected internally, and you're going to get worse and worse reactions until, you know, you snap and take the red pill, and then yeah,
Yeah.
Good luck after that.
come see us afterwards.
There's another kind of guy that I see, and it's almost like he hasn't really gotten out of almost like a childhood ideal fantasy, right? There's like still this fantasy of like what it could be, like the possibility of what humanity and connection could be. It's like I hear it come up most with like fantasies of what people sometimes people think like the past was like. Everything is like very proper, and there's some ideal style of etiquette, which is not necessarily how most people lived in the past anyway. But you know, there's this, and I think it might come from like a lot of like imagination as a kid, not really getting out of that, not really getting in tune with the real world, like a lot of media content, like movies and videos, and maybe reading like that kind of thing. And like I'm curious what your thoughts are, what your guys' thoughts are for those guys.
It's like that Disney princess syndrome, or like like that storybook romance, or
There's like one person out
Yeah.
there for me, and,
Yeah.
like she's the one, that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, it sounds like a kind of dissociated or like disembodied kind of thing going on where he's playing out a fantasy up here and trying to operate from that, trying to operate from like abstract values rather than like what he actually feels in the moment with somebody.
Yeah, that's interesting because there's guys and there are girls who play out these fantasy romance ideas, and it's pretty wild. Like my wife loves like kind of romancy type of things. I necessarily don't, but I'm a dude and most dudes don't. But there are guys that do, and I think it's very interesting. So it's like, how do I honor her with some romantic things that I necessarily am like, but like I enjoy doing it for her, right? And she sees that and that I'm not necessarily, like that, and she respects that, and she does appreciate the little things that I do. So it's like I have to honor how romantic, in a sense, I want to be, but also take into consideration as to where she wants to go. And I think that's a healthier way to do it, and so that you're both comfortable with the giving and receiving of what's happening. Because if somebody does something and they don't really want to do it, you can feel that. And so, like, for example, like the wife gets flowers every 2 weeks. I go and get them for her. She gets roses. And I enjoy doing that for her. And one thing that she enjoys doing is she enjoys giving me cards. I don't necessarily like cards. I don't really care that much about it, but she enjoys it, and she spends a lot of time giving me cards. And so I really appreciate that. But yeah, I just think like you got to find like what's true and real to you, and honor that. And maybe you're not comfortable with like the idea of being that like fantasy romance kind of guy, but maybe you could step just one step past your normal boundary if you have somebody you really care about, and see where they're coming from and see what you could do if it feels good to you to make that happen for them.
Yeah, there's something you're saying. It's like there's a balance here too. So it's like there's actually like being one way of being connected, like with the real world, is recognizing that we do actually, some people are really responsive to and really enjoy the fantasy element, and so you can actually bring that in if you really enjoy it, like even sex fantasies or
Sure.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, and then it's like you could get way off on either end, like no fantasy at all, just all grit and grind, and then that's like I think the thing I was bringing up is like the guys who are way lost in fantasy.
Yeah.
Like they're not grounded in the.
Yeah, you don't want to get to that place.
Yeah.
That's not a good place to be. It's not healthy. And you start, acting on other people's wills, like other people, in a sense, have control over how you're going to be romantic within that fantasy. And that's scary.
It's like a script you're following. It's like this is how this is how the world is, and like if that's how you want to live your life, it's like it's going to be a little bit tricky. You always have and they lived happily ever after, but you don't get the reality of the situation, which is, well, they moved in together, and like the first time she farted in bed, he was like, shit, I didn't think this would trigger. And then, like he snores, and like she steals his fucking blanket while he's sleeping. There's the fantasy and there's the reality, and you get lost in the fantasy, and reality slaps you in the face, and it really will.
It can be a wake-up call.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like, that's it. Happily ever after.
I mean, that might be an interesting topic, is the happily ever after. Is that it's like it really isn't like that.
Yeah.
Like every relationship I've ever had, it's like there's a short period of time where it just feels like happily ever after, and then it gets to the normal, the mundane. Like, do we like being like? Can we just like function and be happy together? That's always like a really big question point for me as to whether or not the relationship's going to last. It's like once that initial euphoria wears off.
Yeah, honeymoon phase is over.
Phase is over.
You're in this thing.
Yeah, she's snoring. I'm sort of like, like I've got my like annoying quirks and
Yep.
farting in bed, and like, do I still like this? Like, do we still just like doing life together? Just enjoy that as it is without the euphoria.
Like it really makes me think of what you were saying about, like buying roses every couple of weeks is not something you enjoy in and of itself, but you enjoy it because it makes her feel good. If the girl next to you in bed farts and you're like, oh, yeah, that matches me. Or if she farts next to you and then you're just like, I'm disgusted by this human being. It's like, you're going to have a clearer sense of
Yeah.
what you actually feel about this person. And yeah.
That's kind of a good point. It's like if once you get past that euphoria, like if every little thing annoys you, like that's probably a pretty good sign that it's not like time to say no.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then also it's like, I guess the flip side of that is how do you keep, or like how do you stop it from just being a flat, just boring friendship and keeping like those spikes of interest and spikes of passion going? Because I think that's another issue like people run into.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But like, at that point, like, you really need to dig deeper with your partner. And
Like a shared purpose really can touch that, because it's like maybe the euphoria isn't about the partnership anymore. Like, wow, I've met somebody that I really love, really feel ecstatic with, but also somebody that like we share some kind of like we enjoy the same kind of dream, the same kind of vision, right? Like we want to go the same place together, so we can feel that euphoria about where we're going, what we're creating, right? Family, kids, business.
yep.
Yeah, and even as a guy who's not like dating for a long-term partner, like one of the things I still sort for is girls who have like a positive outlook or a sense of support towards the things I'm working on, like the projects I'm working on, putting on a workshop. Like if she can see that and be excited about it, like all right, I'm gonna keep that one around.
Nice.
Here's a big one today. What is the role of anger in a healthy relationship, in a healthy masculinity?
How dare you ask that question?
Read that one more time.
What is the role of anger in healthy masculinity?
Okay.
Don't show it, not acceptable.
It's one of the most useful tools men have used proactively. Used reactively, you're a scary individual. But proactively, it's an extreme amount of power. It's empowering. It is a very like high energetic vibration that you feel. It allows you to power through extremely difficult times. It allows you to have that grit to get things done when you need to get it done. And also used effectively, it is an extreme protection mechanism. Again, used appropriately, it's a really good protection energy or emotion, and guys that have that anger underneath the surface, like women love that. They know, oh, okay, this guy's dangerous. This guy will protect me. This guy will go after whoever if I'm in harm. He'll put himself in harm's way to protect me. And women really, they sort for that. They're looking for that. That's what they're really searching for when they're judging a new guy and seeing if he's capable. Countless women have told me that, this is what they're looking for. And yeah, anger's very, very powerful. Again, used proactively, used in the right ways. It's a critical part of the masculine.
That's one of the biggest usually for the guys we work with is one of the biggest ahas they get is when we show them, right? Because
Yep.
they're so good at suppress, like they shove it down, they shove it back, they get the anger, and they're going to be nice, they're going to be comfortable. And even if they are like more boundary guys, they're still not bringing that edge.
Yep.
And then so we challenge them a little bit and get them in, like bring the edge, you know, especially with us. And we always demonstrate and show them the difference. It's just like they'll just approach, you know, we get all our models lined up, all the group of girls, and we have the guys do the approach that they want to do it. They'll get their normal responses, like the girl, you know, normal, cordial, connected, you know, maybe some laughs. And there's such a huge difference when, you know, we'll take the first guy and I'll just be like, push me. And as soon as I see that edge in his eyes, I'm like, okay, now go. Now we do the exact same approach. And the girls are all like, they're squirming and they're all excited. One of the girls just breaks out like giggling laughter, like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's always, it's so cool to see in the guys when they realize that's okay. Not only is it okay, but it is so welcome, and it turns women on.
100%. I mean, and culturally, right? Like for the past 20 years, like there's been a full-on war on masculinity, and men have repressed their anger because I think that's one of the main emotions they're so in touch with naturally, and they repress this stuff. They have this thing inside of them they've never taken out for a test drive, and they're like, is this going to get away from me? And that's like one of the biggest fears. Is this anger going to overwhelm me, and am I going to hurt someone? Am I going to do something I shouldn't? Well, the answer is no. And when guys bring it up, like you're talking about, right? And like we get that anger coming out of them, they're just like, whoa, this is awesome. You know, it's like they found this new superpower. But to them, they're only at like 10%. It's like, dude, I need 90% more out of you. And like, I can tell that would just blow you up right now, right? But it's like slowly coaxing that out. But for them, it feels like 110% because they never really accessed it that well in a controlled environment with people that know how to control that. I have had guys take a swing at me, getting them riled up enough, but it was really important for them to get that riled up because they were just suppressing everything in life.
Yeah, like I definitely feel like anger is one of the most like misunderstood emotions out there, and I love how you kind of correlate it, like anger and safety like go hand in hand, especially when it's like proactive anger, like anger that you're in control of. And you know, it's like you say like, oh yeah, you're not going to get out of control with it. Like, well, certainly if you're familiar with it, you play with it, and you're comfortable in it. The guys I've met who are, you know, like pro like fighters, pro combat athletes, they're usually, not always, but usually the most relaxed, the most calm, the most in touch with that sense of danger. And the people who are like really skittish, who won't do anything, like wouldn't say boo to a mouse or whatever, they're the ones when they start to bubble up, they're the ones you get uncomfortable with.
Yeah, they're a little more scary.
Yeah, you don't know exactly where their edges, you don't know if they can handle it.
Yeah, they haven't played with it enough to know.
It's a very, very different feeling. And you know, like capacity to step into that like anger like usefully is like, you know, if a kid goes like running into the road, what are you going to do? Shout, Timmy, please do not go into the road. It's like it's not, you don't ask nicely. It's like, hey, get back here. And you know, there's that punch, and it's a different kind of energy from that unrestrained anger, which I think for a lot of people, like their idea of anger is just someone having a tantrum. Like, which is a whole different feeling. And
that's definitely a thing to point out too, is that like I think what gets mixed up is like toxic masculinity and anger is that reactive anger.
Totally.
It's like blowing up at people, and that's dangerous.
Well, yeah, those guys, those nice guys in the toxic masculinity, those are all of your mass shooters. That's exactly what happens to those guys. They go through this process of rejection, giving all of themselves, you know, to the world in their mind, but never knowing who they are. And they finally get enough of their perceived attacks. And then that's when that rage starts and that anger starts. And that's when they're starting to shoot people because they're so pissed off at the world, ultimately because they don't know who they really are.
Yeah, and then on a smaller scale, like in the gym, it's like the guys who like, I'm like, I don't, I know the guys that I can get riled up because like they're just gonna get more like, yeah, I'm like, okay, cool, now we're gonna have a little tension in this game, and then I know the guys who like, I can get them riled up, but I know I'm gonna have to actually be like more careful because he's gonna lose himself. He's gonna start getting reactive, and if he like, I'm like. With a guy that I trust, like he can be a little angry, and I'm like, yeah, you get the chokehold, and I'm still gonna work with that. With a guy that I don't trust, like I'm not going anywhere near that because I know that guy. As soon as he gets my neck, he's gonna yank on it, and jam it in my esophagus as quickly as he
Like
can.
the blind anger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's dangerous to him. It's dangerous to everybody else.
It's just not fun to be around. It doesn't feel safe in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It's like the really, really dangerous people. And the funny thing is, like, I'm not saying mass shooter level, but your average guy in the street who feels like he's not in touch with his anger and he's just going to snap any moment. Like, he just doesn't have that capacity for anger. Like, I'm pretty sure, like all of us here could bring a hell of a lot more anger to the table than that guy, and really not show very much on the surface. But like,
Sure.
just walking down the street, just feeling that sense of presence, or like, don't fuck with me, and people feel it coming off you, and it's there, it's contained, it's controlled, it's safe. Yeah, because we've all leaned into it at some point or another.
It's really interesting you said that because there was a lady on like social media talking about this study New York PD did. They just recorded pedestrians for years. And then they took those recordings of people just walking into the prisons because they were trying to figure out how attackers chose their victims. And every single person that didn't have what was considered a normal gait, a gait that was too short is abnormal, a gait that's too long is abnormal, but people that had a normal gait that observed had a little twinge of intensity to them, never were sought out by any of the criminals in there. Not once were they pointed out as that would be a victim I would choose, that would be a victim I would choose. So that's a really good point about anger, right? Part of having some intention in you is some of that edge, right? Like, I'm going to do this, I have purpose, I'm going somewhere. And yeah, it was really interesting because none of the attackers chose any of those people. It was always the people that were meek, the people that had an odd gait to the way they walked, or were slightly disoriented.
Yeah, what's the saying? It's better to have a gun and not need it than not have a gun and need one.
Right? Yeah. What's the other one? It's better to be
Oh yeah,
the warrior in the garden than gardener in a war.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking about with anger is it'll also be like the first like anger and disgust are kind of like the first signals to where your boundaries are. If someone starts to cross that, starts to encroach just a little bit, there's going to be that little ping of like anger, like get the fuck out of my space type of thing going on. And for the guys who are like dissociated from that or just don't have a sense of their own anger, they probably don't have a clear sense of their own boundaries and values and like how to actually conduct themselves in a way that commands respect with people. And that's probably why they end up being like the mass shooters, like the people who like do chokeholds and crank down on your neck too hard, because they're not actually able to sense that in the first place, that anger, that boundary.
Yeah. It was very interesting watching you guys roll today while you're practicing your jiu-jitsu. To the lay person, they might sense some anger and aggression there. From my perspective, it was really nice to see the fluidity and the actual care that you guys had, even when you were getting each other in submissions and tapping each other out. There was so much care there. It was amazing. It was really nice to see.
Yeah, and like aggression is another one that gets such a bad rap.
Yeah.
A healthy level of aggression is really, really necessary. It's like if you're not aggressive or assertive, you know, if you struggle with the word aggression, then you're not going to get very far. You have to put yourself forwards. You have to be able to push and get in that space. And, you know, you can take it too far, obviously. Like, if you're all aggression and you have nothing to back it up with, like, that's a rough ride too. But for the majority of people, I think, who are going to be coming here, like, and listening to this, like, you probably could stand to be a little bit more of a dick in your daily life, and most people will actually appreciate it a lot more than just
Yeah.
you're just kind of hiding in the background.
Yeah, yeah.
Clock ticking on you becoming a mass shooter or whatever.
I think that's a good point too, is that you can have both, right? Like you can have that anger, that you can have that aggression, and that edge, and you can still feel care at the same time. Like you can still be aware of how you're affecting the people around you. Like it's not one or the other, right? Like we can be there, we can be rolling, and I can feel that edge of like, yeah, I'm gonna put a little pain on you, and I can feel you, seeing me that way, and then I also still have like an awareness of like, yeah, like this is a friend, and
Yeah.
I'm not trying to actually hurt him.
Yeah, being able to draw those boundaries and it's like, know those limits. Like, you can't do that if you're just like anger or no anger. It's like, yeah, like I've been here enough times. I know that I can dip in a little bit, or I can go full blown. Like, we were out the other night at a bar, and we're just kind of scoping it out, thinking like, do we go in, do we not? And there's like drunk assholes trying to get in, and there's only a single bouncer, and she's looking a little overwhelmed, and she's trying to like push him away. And so I'm just standing behind the guys. I just grab him and drag him away. And it's like, and I'm not getting excited by it. I'm not getting like, oh no, I need to like fight this guy. It's just get the fuck out of here. And he's coming back, and it's just like a hand on his chest, and it's like, hey buddy, like calm down, rather than like I'm fight or flight.
Yeah.
And as soon as like it was calmed down a little bit, like I'm just like standing behind, not getting involved, just nice and calm, nice and peaceful, but like keeping an eye open for it. And it's very, very different from like, okay, like now we've got to fight.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not interested in getting in a fight. Like,
No.
absolutely not. But a little bit of action goes a long way to like shutting down like some serious problems. Yeah.
I think it might be worth mentioning too, is like, because this seems to come as like a surprise to every dude we teach it to, is that aggression. They get safety, like making a woman feel safe, confused with being nice, right? With being
Yep.
nice and comfortable and unassertive, and it's the opposite.
Totally.
It's like your ability to bring that sharpness, that edge, that aggression is actually what makes them feel safe.
Yeah. The assertiveness is a big one.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay, welcome back. We got one for you.
Welcome back from the steak break.
Yes.
People need to know what happened, why this video stopped so abruptly. And it was because of our master chef here making delicious steaks. Thank you.
It's the true secret to masculinity.
Yes. Okay. I'll step up here.
Yes.
Say
The
hi.
chef. Thank you, Stephen. Those were delicious.
You're welcome. So, does masculinity always mean taking the lead?
I'm not going to take the lead on this one.
So masculine of you, Alex.
I like this one because it can get, no, no, it's like, it is, but it isn't. It's like, for me, what I find is it's almost like taking in all of the information. And it's like, especially when I'm working, like when I'm with my girlfriend, it's like I'm still taking in what she wants, her needs, the direction she has. I am leading it in the sense that I'm making it happen. I'm going to take the front and I'm going to go forward first, but it's not just me just doing the thing, like get on the train. it is a lot like that in a lot of ways, but it's also very much it still requires an awareness of sorts. So there is still like other elements of leadership or ideas that are being generated from like the group. If we're in a group, like there's kind of a shared leadership, and then in a relationship that seems to happen for me as well.
What was the question one more time?
Does masculinity always involve taking the lead?
So, no, definitely not. There are many instances where the masculine doesn't need to lead. You know, maybe your girlfriend, your wife is an expert in a certain thing that you both enjoy. She just happens to be an expert in it. Well, let her lead, right? Let her kind of take control of the situation. I think that's really a good thing for a healthy relationship to happen, right? To have happen. Like, for example, my wife speaks 7 languages. I don't know 7 languages. So I'm always deferring to her. Babe, what's going on? What's being said? I'm letting her take the lead in speaking these languages and figuring out really what's going on when we're traveling around the world. And so that's when I defer to her. I don't have that skill set. You know, I'm terrible at learning languages. I do the best I can, but I really let her lead. The other thing is that, you know, for us as guys, this is something like really simple. You know, maybe you want to take your lady out on like a nice date or something, but you know that she has certain tastes, maybe in hotels, maybe in restaurants, you know, so you go and defer to her. Babe, like, I'm thinking about taking you out, or I'm planning something, you know, would you like to go to this hotel? Would you like to eat at this restaurant? Like, let her get involved in that leadership a little bit and help guide you to get to the place that she's really going to enjoy. Like, maybe you don't care one way or another, right? Like, I kind of don't care about the hotels that I stay at, but the wife loves like certain, like, nicer hotels. Like, there's certain energies that she likes to experience. And so, you know, I let her lead on those things. Sometimes, like, you know, I'm just off in my world and I need a break. And so I'm going to let her be a little bit aware when we're like traveling around, maybe walking down the sidewalk or something. It's like I can space out for just a little bit, let her kind of take the lead. She's hyper aware always. And, you know, these are like the little tiny things that I let her lead on sometimes. And it's awesome. It gives us a break and it allows us to, you know, kind of recover a little bit sometimes when we need that recovery. You know, there's other things that, you know, women do. Like, you know, there's one thing that my wife does that's really awesome. Like, she's always remembering people's birthdays. She's always like getting cards for people. And she's like, here, like, I got this card, like, just sign it. We should send a gift to this person or get a gift for that person, right? So she takes the lead on that stuff. I can't even remember my own birthday half the time, let alone somebody else's. And it's really nice to have her take the lead in those departments of like, you know, remembering birthdays and gifts and like little things that show care to other people. She's just really good at that, and I'm terrible at it. And I'm happy to let her take the lead in those types of situations. And I'm trying to think of some other examples. I'll just sit and think about it. I'll pass this on to whoever.
I have an example socially. Is just that like I'm like pretty introverted, and so like I would be happy like most times just like at home at the shop, and just like tinkering with a project that I have. Like I, you know, when I need to, I'm going to go hang out with my friends. I'm going to go get in touch. But like, you know, the girl I'm dating, like she's very social, like she's super highly social. So she's always setting up events. She's setting us up dinner dates with other friends. She's setting up like little dinner gatherings and parties and stuff like that. And so like, in that way, and she loves it. Like, she loves it. She's super social. She's always texting other people, so she's always in the loop, and that takes a huge load off for me, because then she can just tell me what's going on, just kind of download it to me, and I don't have to be the one like constantly in the back and forth communication, so I can be doing what I do best. And it works really well for us.
That was brilliantly said. My wife is the same way, as you know. Extremely social, like knows what's going on. And yeah, that's a really nice example. That was a better example than what I gave, I think. But yeah, that was really nice. I 100% on board with what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm going to go against the grain and say that, yes, like the masculine should lead and in a way always is leading, but I 100% agree with both of you. And like for me, leadership is not just one guy in control all the time who has to have the final say on everything, because that's just bullshit. Like, really good leaders should have the capacity to go, to defer and say, look, this is something that you're better at than I am. It's something that matters more to you than it does to me, or I don't have the capacity to lead in this moment. And that kind of self-leadership, like leading yourself, is something we've been talking about a lot. And like leading a group can involve sitting back, seeing what the group wants to do, or if everyone's sitting around just bullshitting and like not being able to come up with a decision, taking the lead if it's necessary. So like I absolutely believe the masculine should always have that capacity to lead, but a lot of the time that's just going to involve sitting back, not doing anything necessarily. So
Yeah, totally. And we see this in the military. I just thought of this. Everybody has a specialty on the team, right? Like when a door needs to be breached, they're not calling the medic, right? They're calling the breacher to breach the door. And so, the breacher gets out of the way when the guys go in and the medic's needed. Like he surrenders his leadership to somebody that's more of an expert. And we do this as men all the time, right? Like when we're hanging out, I'm deferring to you guys being here in Austin as my leaders because I don't know Austin. And so I relinquish that control to you guys to lead me around Austin. So that's a really simple form of how we as guys give up leadership.
Yeah, for me, like working in music ed, in like big kind of like team oriented activities, a lot of it was about just equipping people to amplify their strengths. So like if maybe if a student or like a staff member has a knack for like organizing or like running social media or like designing costumes, whatever that is, like being able to put them in a place where they can actually like grow and start to express that and cultivate that sense. And for me, being able to hold the container of like, what's the vibe of the group? What's the team, like, what's the sense of team mission going to be? And still like inspiring those individuals or those like small cohorts of people to like find their strength, find their voice within that, so that like it would be exhausting doing everything myself, and being able to just not just delegate, but like be attuned enough with those individuals to know their strengths, know what they want to include in this collective vision, so that the whole team can like thrive and keep moving forward.
yeah, I love that from like a teaching perspective, teaching jiu-jitsu. It's like same as that. Like I don't want everyone to be like a carbon copy of myself. Same with coaching. It's like it serves no one except from like your own inner guru, like to have that kind of dynamic. Same in a relationship. You don't want the idea of someone. You want that person to be able to thrive and shine as who they are. And I love what you said about knowing the people in your team, like being able to bring out their strengths and let them like shine in their own way. It's really cool.
That's something that's been big for us, is like putting this, this coaching project together, is like actually just noticing the ways in which the ways in which we each shine individually, right? And that's been huge because it's like I started the thing and then own the business. But if I just take that on and I'm like, oh, I have to make all the decisions, I have to make it, I have to see, I have to have eyes on absolutely everything, like it totally gums us up. Whereas if I just like, like Alex brings so much to the table when it comes to like organization and like like just having a strong sense of when something needs to get done. And so like so many conversations we had where I was like, dude, just bring that. Like that's your leadership, right? Like bring that forward, and it makes our whole business run that much better. And then when we're all coaching together, just knowing those moments where it's like it's not just one guy as the star of the show or anything like that. It's like, oh shit, like when we go to grounding, like Dom is absolutely amazing with that. And so like he takes it on, takes the lead, moves all that kind of stuff. When things need to get organized, like we always look to Alex for that. Like if we need to know the big picture, we look for Steven. And then when we just need the grunt and the grind and the aggression to like move things forward and tinker, like that's where I come alive, just to like find out like what's that next little nuance of the practice that we can dig into.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What do we got, Steven?
Well, there's a question of why is it that being nice and agreeable doesn't earn women's attraction?
I feel like there's an implicit question, an implicit statement here, or suggestion that being nice and agreeable is unattractive. I want to fucking nip that in the bud because, like, it's not in itself an unattractive quality. Like, you don't have to be nice and agreeable or a jackass. And, like, what I think the question is asking is, why is just being nice and agreeable not enough in and of itself to be attractive? And it's great to be nice, it's great to be agreeable if that is who you are, and to be also able to bring that deeper sense of masculinity, that sense of like when it's time to not be nice, not be agreeable, to have those boundaries and have that own sense of purpose, and also specifically that kind of lower energy, that kind of grounding and that penetration that takes it a little bit further than just being nice all the time, being agreeable all the time, at the expense of yourself, at the expense of the relationship.
Can you ask the question one more time?
That's why I deferred to you because I didn't have the mic. It's like,
Why doesn't being nice and agreeable earn women's attraction?
It's in my experience, it's like if you're doing the nice and agreeable thing and just the nice agreeable thing, almost like as a strategy to try to be liked or try to be connected, you kind of end up looking like a puppy dog. And like I know some like really skillful, interesting guys that are so nice and agreeable all the time as like their core of their structure, and they just, as much as they want a date, want a relationship, they're really cool guys otherwise, but they're always in the like puppy dog servant role. And it's like, it's not that we aren't, providing and caring for women, because we are, but we're not just like servants. And if that's like what Dom was saying, like there still has to be a preference here. There still has to be like, which isn't always kind and agreeable. And I don't know that that's possible. Like you can be kind, you can be agreeable when you do agree, and when you are just like you have a lot of extra and you have and you want to feel and you feel generous, and especially with somebody who's giving a lot to you and you give to them, like absolutely. But like if I've taken the time to think about myself, I know where I stand here, and I know what matters to me. It's very unlikely that everything we say is going to be in immediate agreement with somebody that I've not met before, with somebody new. or even with, like a longtime partner, there's still going to be little ways in which I thought it was one way, she thought it was another way, and she comes and says her thing, and I say, no, that's not quite right. That's not quite right. Like we need to, at the very least, work it out, discuss, and discussion should be like a natural and normal part of a relationship, like us finding each other and meeting each other.
Yeah, I would agree with all of that. Stephen, question one more time.
For the third time, why doesn't being nice and agreeable earn women's attraction?
Why doesn't?
Why doesn't?
Why doesn't it earn the attraction? First and foremost is because it's not real. Nobody's going to be nice and agreeable all the time, right? Dr. Carol Lieberman wrote a book, Bad Boys, and she talks about women's love and infatuation with bad boys and why they love bad boys so much is because they're not agreeable. They're not going to do what you think they're going to do. They're always a mystery. They're exciting. They're different in the way they think and what they're going to do. And women see them a lot of times as a project, as something that they can latch onto, fix and change and make more, soft and real. And it's this weird dynamic that's never going to work because, to have somebody like that in your life, it's always going to be a challenge. And that is part of the infatuation, is the challenge, the excitement, the constant change and new ways of doing things, and kind of the sort of erratic behavior patterns. It adds mystery, it adds depth, it adds, again, excitement to what's going on for her. Where when you're nice and agreeable and predictable and normal, it gets boring really, really quick. If we watch the same movie over and over and over again, we get bored of it. There's nothing there. But when we watch new movies all the time, over and over, there's always excitement. There's always something to chase, to latch onto, to find something interesting. And, from my perspective, that's really why, guys who are nice, agreeable, they never really get anywhere with women. There's nothing to chase and change and make better. And women love to try to do that to men.
Yeah, there's also like the darker side of it too, which is what we were talking about before, of safety.
Sure.
It's like a guy who's super agreeable. It's almost treacherous.
Yeah, you can't trust him.
Yeah, because it's like if he's this agreeable with me, he's probably this agreeable with everybody else. And so, whose side is he? Like, is he like if it comes down to it, like we live a really safe life in modern times, and so it can seem like it might be okay to be nice and kind and agreeable all the time because you can get away with it in some ways. But if things got more challenging, like, is this guy actually going to be here? Is this guy actually going to hold our boundaries for our safety, our health, our wealth, our genuine desire to like move into the world and make something for ourselves? If he's just like agreeable, I'm like, well, he could just as easily, run to some other tribe, run to some other country and help them. Run to some other woman, if you're a woman. And It's like, if he's saying yes to you, who else is he saying yes to all the time? Just doing whatever, easy to control.
And when you're nice and predictable, you're agreeable. You're ultimately dishonest because nobody's like that. And the thing about the guy that isn't those things, the bad boy, he's honest. He's totally honest. And that honesty is a full-on aphrodisiac.
Yeah, it's like you can be nice and agreeable in moments, but when you're afraid of being cruel, of having harm to people or of being just disagreeable and being able to hold your ground, that's where it gets shaky and like mistrustworthy and all these things that just undermine the stability that a man should be providing the people around him and himself first and foremost.
Now, here's one that flips the topic. Can embracing sensitivity, is there a case this can make a man more masculine?
I would say yes, because if a guy is very locked up in himself or not receptive to the emotional sensory information that's happening around him, there's like a lack of energy and communication happening between his system and other people's. And we need a little bit of that openness to actually reach our full capacity as men. Like I spent a ton of time like super locked out, like icing everybody out. Like my earliest memories are of being in preschool, icing out other kids, right? And to be able to actually open up the sensitivity, like it was quite jarring at first, but has ultimately made me a more stable individual because now I can just like sit here and actually connect with people instead of being like mildly standoffish and frozen.
Yeah, sensitivity is part of a well-rounded masculine guy, right? Let's just look at, say, some kind of car crash happened, right? Or look at the firefighter, right? They're going into a very typically heinous situation with somebody that's in a lot of pain, is hurting physically a lot, emotionally they're being scarred. And if a guy can be strong but sensitive to their needs at that point in time, that is going to be extremely comforting for that person that is in that treacherous place. You know, as far as like wives and girlfriends go, we need to be sensitive to their emotional needs. It's really important. It's hard because we don't always get it. We fuck it up. But we need to be sensitive to that, you know, and what she's going through. And, you know, all of our buddies, when we're hanging out, everybody's gone through some kind of shit. And being sensitive when it's important to be sensitive for them, to know that they're supported and cared for and taken care of is critically important to building a deeper masculine bond with your buddies.
Yeah, I love that. That sense of being able to connect to other people, be able to feel what they're putting out, and the sense of like safety and trust in a guy who can push you but isn't going to go way over your boundaries, way over your limits, and at the same time can sit there and go like, push you, and then go, hey, buddy, what's up? What's happening to you? What's going on in there? And like sensitivity in that respect, like, you know, is going to give you that sense of trust, that ability to play on the edge rather than just like, you know, barreling all the way through. And ultimately it's going to make you feel like safer to be around, more fun to be around as well, rather than just, you know, someone who's always playing safe or just some asshole who's always like disrespecting everyone else around him. And in that context, yeah, sensitivity is great, being able to be to sense what's going on rather than, you know, what sometimes we consider sensitivity as in someone who's like very like emotionally like fragile, almost someone who's like affected by everything, which isn't such a masculine quality.
Yeah, I think that's a super important point, is the distinction between sensing and awareness and just like being highly emotionally reactive. Right? It's like my that sense, that ability to stay curious, right? It's like I'm staying sensually curious. I'm hearing, I'm listening, I'm aware. as much as I can be to like what's going on here, and I'm still kind of in a way just constantly asking a question of like, how am I doing? How are you doing? How's everything? What's going on here? So aware of the space, aware of our, our activation levels, that kind of thing. And with that sensitivity comes, like you guys are talking about, like that safety. It's like, oh, you're sensing me, right? You're sensing me, and so like our play actually can get a little bigger, until until it breaks, But then we just like come back and find it again. But that sensitivity is so commonly misunderstood as just being like all the time.
Yeah, and like I know what you're talking about, right? When a dude hears sensitivity, it's like, oh, you pussy. That's and we'll say that to each other, right? Further perpetuating that like internal scar that we can't show emotion, but that's just what we do as dudes. But yeah, being aware of that in allowing yourself to be sensitive in the right times, and to your point, not being this fragile, frail specimen of a male that just gets triggered all the time, which we know some people like that.
Yeah, I like that sense of like emotional reactivity versus the ability to sense emotions. Like, I've seen it when you're running workshops, and like, when I'm teaching or when we're in a group setting, like that ability to, hold the entire space, like, 10, 20 people, however many it is, and just know that, buddy over there is starting to feel something, he's getting a little uncomfortable, and being able to like, check in on him and go like, hey, what's going on with you? Like that kind of sensitivity, it's an amazing skill. Like seeing it firsthand and being able to do that is it's pretty damn awesome. And yeah, it's a far cry from the other kind of sensitivity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It also brings in like a lot of confidence. Like there's a way where like if I'm trying not to feel all of those feelings that start to just like move through the body when that sensitivity is being opened, like I can feel really stiff, I can feel like walled off, like Alex was talking about, and it comes across as scared, right? It comes across as like scared and distant, and like there's some like archetypes and characters that you can kind of think that like, oh, there's maybe some kind of like stoic strength to it, but like I way more trust the guy, and I trust myself more, and I have a lot more fun when I let myself feel that sensitivity, when I let myself feel that moment. Like my back really opens up a lot. I can start to feel more energy moving in my body. I move bigger, I talk bigger. And especially when it comes to like dating, like girls fucking love it. Like girls love all that sensual energy moving on a man's body. Like Elvis wasn't famous for not, yeah. He was famous for a reason,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was definitely all about his body awareness, the way he toyed with playing, with the tension of the girls in the crowd and himself, and yeah. Like that's an excellent example of energy running through the body. I mean, and we see it in many musical performers. That's why people go in like the thousands to see somebody perform. But there's also this little bit of risk there that people want to see, the dark side of us, want to see them fuck up. That's always there. And but the greats recover from those. Half the time you don't even see those fuck ups. And yeah, it's just a feeling that they're exuding and like pushing out there to the whole audience that's watching, and it's infectious. It can be used for good and bad.
Mm-hmm. That sensitivity is what allows us to like really play and connect with each other, even if like we're calling each other pussy or like just like being hard with each other. Like there's still a level of attunement that has to happen to be able to like push and pull on each other. And like you were saying, like if someone's really locked up, they're maybe trying to like do the stoic thing of like staying still for whatever reason, it actually reads as fear, and we're like less inclined to play with that person. Like not gonna test them the same, not gonna like give them the same amount of attention. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that ability to like feel your emotions or not feel your emotions. Essentially, if you're just locking it out and there's no sensitivity, no awareness of what's going on inside, on one level, like it's what you're saying, it's fear. It's that like it's saying, I don't trust my ability to handle whatever the hell is going on inside, which means that you're definitely not going to trust yourself to handle any emotions coming your way, like let alone the shit inside. So yeah, that's not very masculine at all. And at the same time, you think about performers, speakers, anyone, like, it could be someone reading a script or whatever, but if there's no emotion coming off them, they could be saying the most interesting thing in the world, but you're just going to switch off. Like, there's going to be nothing there. And again, that's not very engaging. So, like, yeah, like, hell yeah, being sensitive, being able to feel your emotions,
I mean,
pretty damn masculine.
yeah, I mean that's what makes the play fun. It's like like you said, it's like if we're making jokes with each other, and I'm not sensing you, and I don't feel that that the energy that gets turned on in your body and the energy that gets turned on in mine, then it's just kind of like cold, sharp words at that point, where it's like the whole point of doing the thing, the whole point of ribbing on each other is to feel those movements of energy and have a good laugh, and like let the body just move,
Yeah.
and enjoy ourselves a bit.
It's like just jabbing at someone and just like, emotionlessly like stabbing at them. It's just insulting people, which is not quite the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and then, you have like great warriors that are actually out killing, but talk about it in like a very emotionally aware, sensitive way. It's very interesting when you come across one of those guys, or the way like the samurai used to write about, their training and like their appreciation and love for like who they're training to kill. I mean, it's just wild.
Yeah, it's like it's really easy to like take a life or like fuck someone over if you have no appreciation for like the value of a human life or someone else's feelings. But if you can feel all of that and still go anyway, it's a very masculine trait.
Yeah.
Often in our culture, we talk about the damage that can be caused by masculinity and masculine power. Here, we've talked a lot about the benefits and what it looks like. How can a man express this power responsibly? What should he consider?
Yeah, the first thing for me is just like being in touch. It's like the only time I see like that masculine edge doing damage is when that sensitivity gets shut off, that taking in of information, sensing gets shut off, and it's just like honed in for like some very specific goal that isn't really taking in all the information. And I don't have many clear examples of that. So maybe you guys have something to say about that as far as examples go.
Yeah, I kind of feel, I don't know if this really counts, but it's like if you're always being like nice to people, always just kind of saying, oh yeah, you're doing a good job. Like, oh yeah, like, just keep doing what you're doing. Great job, buddy. And you never step in and challenge them and say, hey, like, buddy, like, what's going on? You could be doing better. Like, you're not living up to your potential. You could be so much more. Like, that's kind of the edge I'm thinking of, rather than just having no edge or going the other way and just like always trying to tear people down for whatever reason. And I was going somewhere with that, but I'm lost.
The stakes are definitely changing my thinking right now.
Can you repeat that?
How can a man express power responsibly?
How can a man express power responsibly? The first thing that I think of is making sure that he's taking care of himself first. Appreciating the power that it takes to take care of himself first, and making sure that he's holding himself to a high standard. And then the people that are around him, encouraging them to do the same for themselves, supporting them when he can do that, when he can support and he has the bandwidth to do it. When it comes into like his woman and his family, you know, encouraging her, supporting her as she's going through things or wanting to try new things or explore new things. There's a lot of women that, because their fathers were discouraging, they didn't have a positive experience with the masculine, that they're afraid to get out there and try new things. And with a supportive masculine guy, they can go and do that and feel safe doing that. You know, he needs to encourage his family and discipline the kids as well, providing them with good discipline to grow up and be functional adults, not degenerates, really holding high standards for himself first, his woman, his family, his circle of friends as well, like choosing appropriately. The men he surrounds himself with, that's how he responsibly controls his experience and affects the world positively around him. And you know, another thing responsibly that a guy could do, it's just something so simple, is literally just saying hi to someone and genuinely meaning it when you run into them during the day, because you don't realize like what other people are going through. And a simple hi that's genuine from someone can really change that person's life, and or even their day. It could change their life, but it definitely would change their day, even for a little bit maybe. And just being aware of how much power the masculine has behind it, and how to use that power effectively to encourage and promote goodness in the world and the people around you.
Yeah, there's something you said early there, which is feeling like a man feeling his own power. And I think it's super, super important that a man is feeling his own power, or it can get so distorted so quickly. Because if you don't feel power in yourself, if you don't feel your own power for yourself, there's so many people that will start pushing out and trying to get everybody else to reflect it back to them. And I see that a lot with like woke culture. It's just like people just coming out and just screaming at everybody else, trying to get everybody else to show them that they're powerful, because they don't feel anything internally. They don't feel powerful themselves. And so they're trying to come yell at you so that you'll be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And then they're like, oh, cool. Somebody thinks I'm powerful. I must be powerful. But they're not actually sourcing that from themselves. They're not sourcing it from within. And as a dude, if I'm like, if I do my workout in the morning and I feel and I push and I go do the thing I need to do, and I feel like accomplished in getting done what I need to get done for myself and then for the people that I care about, like I feel my power, right? I feel my power. I feel that stability in there, and then it just radiates out. And then that power then can actually benefit everybody outside of me, right? Because then I'm not trying to push around to get somebody else to show me I'm powerful, which is actually going to be taking.
Yeah, it's like they're kind of trying to get other people to give up their power rather than just claim more of their own.
Yeah, like that. I feel like the question kind of invites a comparison again with toxic masculinity, like where masculinity is being used in a harmful fashion. And I heard a really interesting thing a while ago where someone was describing like modern feminism and woke culture as like the actual pinnacle of kind of toxic masculinity, where people are like running roughshod over everyone else, trying to steer things, and force people to believe what they themselves probably don't even believe, but they're just echoing and shouting louder than everyone else. I love what you said about that own sense of like personal power, which is like why else would people join different movements to feel strong in a group? Like when you have that sense of purpose, that sense of power within yourself, a sense of stability and that ability just to go, hey, this is what I feel, this is what I believe, and yeah, I don't agree with you on this. I don't think that is right. This, even if it's close, this is what I believe. That is, the only truly responsible thing you can be doing. If you're following someone else's, path because they think it's right and it's close to what you think, but if you yourself know that this is right for me, like if this feels good to me, if this feels like internally, honest, full of integrity, go nuts. But I think, yeah, so many people lack that sense of power and that sense of direction, which is why so many people are so easily led. Yeah.
It's like when you're lacking your own sense of power and sovereignty and ability to make decisions that are compelling for you and the people around you, then that's where the distortions start to come in. You start to ask for things in weird ways. You start to like demand and like draw on other people's energy just because you're ignoring this entire like power and sovereignty that you already have built in.
Yeah, like I feel like you see it a lot in in language where people talk about being like kings or goddesses, and it's for me it's like no greater sign than someone who's like really not feeling it than if they're going around shouting from the rooftop like like if you're king you don't need to tell people.
They know.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I see that stuff all the time, and I'm just like, wow, what?
Read their energy.
Yeah, just like, wow, what a facade.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I'm glad you brought that up.
This is the last one I've got, and it's, how can a man develop a strong masculinity?
Well, Stephen, I'm glad you asked. You can come and do workshops. Yeah, with Nick or Alex or Dom or myself. That's one way, right? Because you can study this stuff, you can read it in a book all you want, until you get a visceral experience in your body of how this works. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for you to figure out. There's guys that just naturally have it. Awesome. They're not the guys that are going to probably be listening to something like this. But it's a lot of study. Sport is a great way to access that masculine signature, whatever sport, whether it's martial arts, whether it's riding dirt bikes, whether it's, playing football, whatever it may be. As long as you're participating in sport, challenging yourself, the biggest thing for masculinity to grow that's required is challenge. And if you're not challenging yourself, you're not being challenged by your peers, by other guys you look up to, or even coming to a workshop like this, or testing your mettle, in sport or whatever you may be doing, it's going to be really, really hard to grow. And I think American culture, at least, is ripe for this pussification that's happening, because as kids, everybody's getting trophies just for showing up. And I just recently saw this video. This little boy got his trophy, and he just walks out of the gymnasium and chucks it in the trash can. And his dad's like, "What did you do that for?" He's like, "I didn't earn this." And he just walks out the door. I was like, oh my God, finally, like men are coming back. And this pussification culture's hopefully dying off. But it's just really about challenging yourself in a multitude of ways, physically, emotionally. And that's pretty much all I got to say on that one.
Yeah, challenge and competition. Competition's huge for me. It's just like anytime I'm denying the challenge or the competition or the checking against reality, right? Like a constant abrasion against reality, keeps me keeps me more and more connected to my masculine. Like competition is absolutely huge, and not just any competition, but like a variety of competition. So it's like you can find the thing that you've done and you did like one type of competition and you got really good at it and now you win all the time. And that doesn't really do it. It's like if you found something and you've completed some path, then like expand into something else, right? Do something physical and do something mental, and whether you're good at the thing or not, you're just stay in the competition because you're going to grow. Like you're going to grow and you're going to constantly reshape and become more resilient to every aspect of that challenge, and especially if you can, you know, be in that competition and in that challenge with people that are just outclassing you. Like every opportunity you have to be in that challenge with men who are just much better than you, crush your ego over and over and over again. But those are the guys you're going to learn the most from. Like hanging out with guys who already have this handled, who do really well, who you can learn the most from, and who are willing to like push on you and challenge you, and with as much love as possible, right? With as much care and love and all that kind of stuff.
And an occasional kick in the ass when you need it.
Absolutely. I just saw a reel the other day and it just like hit. It just hit so nicely. And it was just this guy doing some weird martial arts stuff, being like, I'll take a fight anytime, any day. And then the dude commenting on it was like, if you're posting videos like this tells you absolutely need some male friends that will like kick you in the ass and tell you this is stupid. This is stupid. It looks terrible, and don't ever post anything like this, because you can get so far. You just get so weird. You can just get so far out, so far disconnected from yourself, off in some la la land. If you don't have guys that'll just give you a little, give you a punch, give you a slap in the face when you need it, crush your ego, you know, or legitimately hold you back, give you choke you out or whatever you need to be done, right?
Yeah, like I do understand that like urge to go deeper inwards and like go and find like everything inside yourself and to really go deep and find that sense of like internal power. But it's so easy to get lost up your own ass, and like you are no use to the world if you don't show up. And like I feel like the deeper you go inside, the more you have to balance that with showing up in life, because you know, a monk achieving enlightenment on top of a mountain it's great. He's going to make everyone around him feel happier. And who the fuck is that? Like take that sense of like personal power, that sense of like stability and grounding, go into the world and discover that you actually don't have shit, because you can do it on a mountaintop, but you can't do it surrounded by people. So like, go inwards for sure. Like feel your power, your masculinity, your safety, your protection. Share that with the world. And when you find out that you can't hold that much, cool. Go in, go deeper, find out how much you can hold, keep testing your capacity. But always, you know, we've said challenge so many times, like growth, like, yeah, you have to keep challenging yourself, you have to keep pushing, and inwards and outwards.
Can I get the last part of that question again?
How can a man develop a strong masculinity?
Okay. My answer might sound a little weird, but abandon your own sense of righteousness. Why? Because most people hide behind a sense of righteousness to avoid actually coming to grips with reality, and like in a really granular sense, finding out what they actually need to learn. They need life to kick them in the ass. And if you're hiding behind a sense of like what you should do, like who you should be, how you should present to other people, it's probably just a mask of fear. And there's going to be this underlying gut sense that something's wrong, that there's some like path not taken in life, some kind of like you'll see it a lot when like people love to hate on Donald Trump, but like there's something about a person like that you love to hate. There's some quality that you want to emulate in yourself that you haven't yet satisfied. And if you're hiding behind a sense of righteousness or ethics, that's not really like felt and deeply ingrained in your body and your nervous system. There's something you're missing out on and something you still have yet to seek out.
Damn. That was really nice.
Thank you.
That was awesome.
That was me. I hid behind righteousness for a long time.
Very cool, man. I really like that. That was awesome. I want to thank you guys for inviting me to come down here and do this. And I wanted to see if you guys, I'm thinking about putting this on my podcast. I think it's a very interesting conversation.
I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
Cool. I think we should tell people where they can find us.
Yeah.
Yeah, for myself and Nick, fullyknown.live. We've got a Discord server. We've got events coming up. Europe, here in Austin, potentially back in SF. Online group calls, one-on-one coaching. All kinds of crazy crap that we're cooking up.
Yeah, and it's primarily about getting to know yourself, like getting to know especially the dark, hard, ugly stuff. Like that's what I thrive on. Like I'm like, whatever you consider like dark, hard, hell, like I'm like, bring it on. Let's go. Let's have some fun. Let's get it out because that's where you're gonna find enlightenment. That's why you're gonna find like a lighter version of yourself, a happier version of yourself. And like Alex said, fullyknown.life.
You can find me online at twowolves.coach. Same on Instagram, twowolves, TWOWOLVES .coach. And yeah, like I'm based in London, so in Europe we run some workshops together, but also like in London and online, branching out, doing more stuff. Grounding apparently is my thing, and like I have a special place in my heart for people who are falling down that sinkhole of like, meditation and their emotions, but actually want to show up in the real world and don't quite fit the hippie dippy line of thinking. So yeah.
So you can find me at limitlessbrave.com, and all socials are Limitless Brave. You can join my circle community via the link tree on all of my socials. Have a vibrant community there of guys that are really going for it, extremely supportive. You guys are instrumental in making that happen as well. It's really awesome to have you in there. And, I kind of cover the gambit. I'm doing dating, doing masculinity. I know a lot of guys are confused about masculinity, but in business and money-making stuff, really doing a lot of mindset, doing heavy grounding work, heavy energetics work, mindset reframing. So yeah.
And Stephen, the steaks.
And Stephen, you guys need a good steak.
Yeah, Steven makes us great steaks at least once a week. So
That's how
such a class act.
That's right.
Steak every week.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Dave, for coming out here to hang with us and
Yeah.
get some of this done.
Yeah, it's awesome. I've been looking forward to it. It's nice to hang out with good dudes and talk about this stuff.
Yes, it is.